Hello, everyone. Welcome to Shaping Stories, a glass artist podcast. My name is Dominique Casey, and I'm the host of this Passion Project podcast. I'm very excited to introduce my friend Amanda Nardone today while she tells us a little bit about her story, about her process and her inspiration, and her chainmail weaves. Thank you so much for listening.
To begin, will you introduce yourself? What is your name and where do you live?
Hi, my name's Amanda Nardone, and I live part-time in Holliston, Massachusetts, part-time in Hudson, Massachusetts, and I'm a holistic health coach and a glass blower.
Did you grow up in that area or did you move there later on in life?
I lived in Waltham, Massachusetts until I was 10. And then my dad, who had grown up in Waltham and was kind of like a notorious troublemaker in Waltham, was like, well, I don't want her, she's got to go to middle school somewhere else because there's too much trouble over here. So they moved us to Holliston, which was quieter and farmier. They
Mm.
they wanted like a quiet teenage existence for us. Kind of just stayed around there back and forth depending on what's going on with career, and it's needed for me to go be somewhere that's busier and more built, then I'll do that. But I kind of gravitate back to family and friends and stuff.
Hmm. And what did you enjoy doing when you were growing up?
Oh, so I was, as a kid, I was so fascinated by like, again, small things. Like my work is on a really micro scale. I was the kid that had my hands in the dirt and I was watching intently what like the bugs were doing, the ants and the little butterflies and stuff. Used to go to Walden Pond with my family a lot. I was just obsessed with like the tiny worlds, and we'd build terrariums, and I got really attached to assigning people like identities to the bugs.
Yeah.
Um, and I was very mad at them when they would, beat each other up or, have conflicts with each other. My godmother was my babysitter, and she taught me a lot of like the crafting abilities that I will kind of weave into different things. We did a lot of stuff with like transparencies and coloring books, but she also would habitually do things like buy craft kits for that said that they were for older kids, and ask my mom if we could just see what I do and supervise while we decide whether it's safe for me. So they gave me a jewelry kit, and I really went wide with that one. I actually still have the pliers from that kit.
Oh my gosh. I love that. Wow. So when did you start doing glass? Did you find that you were able to maintain that creativity while you're in like middle school, high school, and getting older, or did you leave that and come back to it later?
My parents found a summer camp for us. Maybe they just needed time off from us during the day. And it was like an art summer camp. You never had to twist our leg to go to the art summer camp.
Yeah.
And so they found one for me one year that it was like every week was a different medium. Week one was drawing, and then they moved on to photo. And there was like stone sculpture, ceramics, and glass blowing.
Hmm.
And I think I was 13 or 14, and immediately was like, oh, this is the coolest thing I've ever tried. I think it was like a young Chris Watts who was guiding my hands on the first hollow bubble I ever blew.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah.
And it was at Diablo back when that was open. And one of the funny things about like that first bubble was that Chris looked away for a second because somebody like needed his help for like a microsecond. He was like, I'm trying to babysit this kid right now. And in just that half a second, the bubble folded into itself and it made a witch ball. Ends up, I'm Wiccan like 20 years down the line. The universe just kind of unfolds in weird ways.
So as a kid, you have your hands in so many different art forms and you started glass, which you have taken into your adult career, right? Keep taking us down this path. So you're in art school, you're still a kid. You haven't gone through the teenage years yet, right? What was that like?
I think a lot of teenagers are really just trying to figure out how to survive and keep their head low without getting into anything crazy. That did happen successfully for me, which was nice. I mean, like I had this really tight friend group. There was just like three of us. We do stuff like we'd play Dirty Pictionary, which I'm sure is not our invention. Like, but we were excited about it as kids. Like we'd figure out a way to like make the prompt inappropriate and then I'll be drawing, you can guess, on a piece of paper, just laughing our butts off. So it was really just a lot of doing that in the parents' basement. And that was like the recipe for survival at the time. But we did have a great arts music program in Alston. A friend who is a middle school arts educator, like a personal friend of mine who went to school with me in Philadelphia, just had like a professional development seminar in Holliston. And then she texted me a picture of hanging out with my high school art teacher and how the way the rooms have changed since then. And I guess one of the educators went viral for accepting some challenge that his student issued. They did murals all over the walls in the hallways. That wasn't there since I've been there. It was a really cool place to express yourself. And I think just that was a time where I was really focused on just trying to be proficient in drawing and painting. I do think that it's important for professional artists to be able to communicate via drawing. If you want to use digital tools to make that drawing, that's a very valid way of doing that in this day and age. But I do think that drawing is important.
What was inspiring you during that time? What were you drawing and painting? Was it more whatever your professors were guiding you towards, or did you have your own inspirations during that time?
If I had one piece of feedback for the teachers, it's that they might want to consider giving the kids like stronger, more complicated prompts. I felt like it was a lot of just whatever you were dreaming up.
Like too
Um,
loosey-goosey,
it
not
was a little loosey goosey. I mean, the kids loved that though. I mean, I get that it was really helpful for a lot of people, but some of us who kind of already decided we were serious about it, maybe we could get something a little bit more specific.
after high school, did you take your art in a more formalized direction after that?
Yeah, I decided, I think junior year of high school, I was like, I think I'm going to art school. My family, it took them a second to like adjust to that idea, but they were in support of it. But they're like, okay, that's a tough career choice. How are you going to make that sustainable? And I mentioned, well, I do also like fitness. It helps to have an education in fitness, but you don't need a degree in fitness. So maybe that's a good backup plan. And they're like, okay, that sounds like a good plan. We can stand by you on that. And then they issued me the challenge. They were like, study hard, do your SATs, go see if you can get yourself a scholarship, and we'll see if we can make up the rest. And when we have options on the table, we'll talk about it. Luckily, I had two by the end of all of that, and I chose Temple.
What did you study there? And do you feel like maybe your feedback from your high school art teachers, maybe you felt like you weren't as prepared for it? Maybe if you had a stronger guidelines going into college, it would make it different.
I felt ready. I didn't feel unprepared or anything. There was a lot of work that went into putting those portfolios together for sure. You had to have like a good camera to photograph things and stuff. You couldn't just use your phone because phones had terrible cameras back then. I do think that foundation year, I watched it become a breaking point for a lot of people. I can see how it was designed to break people. Part of me wants to just really say, be patient with people and watch them grow into artists on their own terms. But there are going to be situations where the pressure's on. And I think foundation year is preparing you for that. You should be able to turn the speed up if you have to and slow it down if you have to.
Hmm. And what were your focuses and inspirations while you're going through college, through school?
I'd say that feminism really started to come up as a theme in college. I was very interested in it as a subject, and if I could plan out gaps to take sociology classes about feminism, I would do that. Just wanted to be very curious about that. And so it started to like inform the statements I was making and ultimately ended up informing the work that went into this glass exhibition I did later on in life.
Cool. All right, keep taking us down the path. So you're going through school, and are you just kind of focusing on school? Are you doing work on the side?
I was in school from 2009 to 2013. And I think during that time, that was when Occupy was a thing. So I attended a few of those and Temple University's in Philadelphia. So for months, there was just an active protest in downtown Philadelphia. And that was, you're just walking around. Okay, that's normal. Yeah, sure. There were drum circles. There's a drum circle, actually, the historical drum circle that met every Tuesday since like 1960. Yeah, crazy, right? And behind the art museum, occasionally people would get too rowdy and it would get shut down for, I believe, good reasons.
Yeah, safety.
Yeah. And then, when people were ready to try to be responsible a little bit, it would come back up. But I loved going to that. I loved meeting the people that I met at that. I met some people that would host their own drum circles inside their houses and with the same crowds. My roommates and I started making contacts with like people in the underground music scene and hosted a couple shows in our house. It was a cool place for people to experiment with their art, music. We were trying to get our hands in as many different skills and abilities as possible and just enjoy ourselves as people. It was a very like collegey 60s type of feeling in my household, especially considering a large number of them were in the rock climbing club. That was also when I started doing that.
I was gonna ask that how fitness and that part of your life combined with the creative artist part of your life, do they fit pretty well together, or do you feel like you have two sides of yourself?
That's a great question. I do have like a bit of an analytical approach to anything, but I would say that the artistic process, I feel like I'm exercising more of like the right hemisphere, and the health and wellness part is more of the left hemisphere. Sort of feels like I get a good brain workout from incorporating both of them.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been great. I have found a very easy functional crossover between glass blowers and rock climbers because of the forearm muscles involved.
It makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the hand
Yeah.
strength.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Especially like the people who like to move kind of big, heavy stuff. Hey, you ever thought about this? And they're like, what now?
Right. Right. And also being considerate of your body while you're making the art is just a massive thing to think about.
Hmm. Yeah. There's a chance that you could really get longer amount of years out of your hands if you take care of the muscles in the way that they want to be taken care of. Yeah.
So then I first met you, you were at Worcester Center for Crafts, but I can't even remember the year. So you left and did you jump back right over to Massachusetts after that? Like after you got out of school?
So I stayed for a couple years. I worked for John Pomp Lighting, the John Pomp Lighting Factory for a year, which was really interesting. I've described him as a man who has some sort of eyesight that's like not testable by a traditional eye chart. His ability to pick up on a stone or a scratch or something like that, he can do it from 20 feet away when I'm standing in front of it and I can't even see it. And he'll go up to it and he'll be like this. And I'll only see it once he points it out. It's his work, so it's his choice to throw out something because it has a tiny little something in it. I'm hourly, so your call. Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt after the first week, I just felt honored that I didn't get thrown out the front door because of quality control.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
it was really it was not easy to center everything. I worked in the cold shop and I worked in the hot shop to keep everything centered, to keep the punties at their right size. That was the first time that I worked in a production facility and the first time that anybody had demanded anything so exact out of me. And it taught me a lot. I thought that was valuable.
Was that a crazy culture shock out of the university setting into like a perfectionist production setting? It must have been a lot.
The expectations of the standards of execution were certainly shocking. Also, I'll say that. But I had already worked in blue collar settings before in landscaping, and the cultural side of it was familiar, you know.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Wow. And then just kind of rock climbing and living your life and making your own art on the side of that production work that you were doing.
Yeah, so was working at the local rock climbing gym while I had that job. I would teach the intro to belaying course, rope management, while one person's up and the other person's on the ground. So two partners can work with each other, and the gym can sign off on that relationship. One day, two guys showed up for a class who were absolutely stoned out of their minds. And I was like, I have to teach you rope safety right now. So I asked the front desk what to do. And they were like, oh, well, you got to get them to pass by the end of it. And I don't recommend you just leave them with the rope. You're going to have to back up belay the rope until they sober up. And I was like, oh God, what are you going to do? Either you're going to just be like, are you high? And they're going to be like, no, I'm not high. I really had no like way of just being like, guys, you're in above your head. You're going to freak out right now. So I just stayed with them for like 3 hours until they were sober enough to understand the material and and then leave. So I definitely got a good chuckle after it. Don't go do that, stoned public service announcement.
Yeah, I'm sure that going through those kind of experiences made teaching glass seem not dangerous at all later on in life.
You think that, and then stuff will happen like you have somebody with a learning disability that doesn't tell you they have a learning disability. And turns out they didn't fully absorb the information about how to avoid getting burned,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah,
know, and it's
yeah,
their choice to not inform you. But
yeah,
how,
yeah.
if you're trying to communicate in the way that you would just communicate with a person who you're assuming doesn't have that issue and it's
Right.
not going in.
Yeah, like you can't make accommodations for somebody if you're not aware of what accommodations they need.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So then you left the production facility and did you have any other jobs out there before you came back around into the Massachusetts area?
For a very short time, I worked for a company that had purchased what was left of Fenton.
Oh, that's cool. Huh.
It was very strange because
Yeah.
Fenton was trying to figure out Fenton, and we actually got to go see the old Fenton factory in Ohio.
Wow.
Um, with the gigantic conveyor belts for the glass and the old benches and these just gigantic like pot furnaces that went up to the ceiling, like the building at Wheaton Arts in New Jersey. It was really cool. It was so much bigger too, even than that, just multiple towers just moving up to the ceiling. But what had happened was that since that style had gone out of vogue, it had just moved and evolved into this teeny tiny little flame working studio with like hand painted enamel beads and just lampwork glass beads, essentially. Quality's probably on par with Murano stuff too. It was good, like it was nice execution.
And then that company that didn't work out for them.
They didn't have the kind of name recognition in that field. They kind of threw out all of the interesting handmade elements to their work. The evolution wasn't quite there.
Then what came next for you?
So then I applied for the residency at Worcester Center for Crafts. I was there for 2 years, which was really helpful. It was just a nice place to be while it was there. And, it's really sad that it's closed down. I think the pandemic really did that one.
So the Center for Crafts is still open, but the glass portion of it is closed. Do you want to just kind of give a brief overview of what that looked like for people that weren't able to go and see it when it was operating?
You'd walk in, and then to the right was the hot shop. You had a larger glory hole. There were three. There was a large, medium, and small. A furnace, so like full service hot shop, like large size kilns. A lot of it got donated by people over time because Worcester Center for Crafts is a nonprofit. Those donations really, really helped people. The flame shop where I hung out most of the time had 8 or 12 stations. It had a big table, the option to have either all miners or all Carlisle's CCs at it. I did rehabilitate or like clean and try to get up to working order several of the torches there. That was part of like my volunteer responsibilities to the craft center, was to like clean the torches. There was a fusing studio. Like if you walk down the hall, there was a fusing studio, the left, nice big fusing studio with like kilns. And then the artist in residence studios were on the other side of the kiln rooms. If you were an artist in residence, you got like a space to make work, which was great.
What was this big installation that you said that you came back to later in life?
When I was in Philadelphia, I had just started getting friendly with the curator of the National Liberty Museum. I'd gone to school with her. She also did feminist art. She kind of liked my work. And if something came up with them that was relevant, she would ask me if I wanted to make something. So she told me, like, oh, we have this big upcoming, like, LGBT women artists exhibition called Transparency that went to National Liberty Museum, and then they applied for it to travel. So it also ended up going to the Tacoma Museum after that. She was like, pitch me something. And it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do. There was a lot of turmoil going on with like the whole Me Too thing. I was like, well, this is a pretty good time to have a voice and say something about that. What I ended up doing, I said I wanted to turn smartphone glass into lingerie.
That's so cool.
Thanks.
Yeah.
There was a lot of steps between the conception and the product, which, is, I would guess, in somewhere in the zeitgeist is probably my best known piece now. I had to figure out, okay, so got this thing that's very much not a textile that shatters and pokes you, and how are we going to turn it into a textile? A technique with certain textiles to make them stronger is laminating. So, and I was like, okay, well, we could try that, but we got to acquire some smartphone glass, and we got to acquire smartphone glass that's like thin enough for me to puncture it. So I reached out to Corning. I did have some buddies at Corning. I had taken some classes there. They were a fan of me. I think it was Tina Oldknow. I reached out to Tina Oldknow and said, like, hey, I'm really interested in the Willow prototype, and I would actually like to make a contemporary art piece with something like that. And she was like, okay, well, you have to call it like experimental prototype by Corning X. And I was like, yeah, no problem. And then they sent me this big white shipping container with like 30 pieces of this crazy stuff that would like bend and flex. And at one point, I was like, okay, well, I have to bend it far enough so that it shatters. So I know. I bent it like all the way down here and then it shattered.
Wow.
So I had my raw material, and then I had to test out several different glues. So what I basically ended up doing was I'd take two sheets and I'd pour a two-part epoxy. I had to try like 8 different two-part epoxies between the two layers, and then let it set. And then after it's set, the epoxy was pliable enough that it would move like a fabric, and then it would crack and break on when I moved it. And I could take an awl, like a metal awl, and when after I had like made the pattern for the lingerie and I was going to fix the glass on top of it, I would like puncture the glass with the awl, and then I could stitch right through it. So it was a really crazy research and development process to get to that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it also takes both your left brain and your right brain, like those aspects of yourself to do that because you have to be able to communicate what you're trying to do. Like you need more than just being creative to do it, like just to have those communications with Corning and to find the materials. That must have been a lot. Yeah.
It was certainly a monumental effort, and there were some people who I think were like, hey, why isn't this in the Worcester exhibition? And you work for Worcester now. And I'm like, mm, somebody else asked for it, so it's going there.
Right. And it should be seen by I mean, Worcester is a small city compared to the broader world of going out to Tacoma, you know. Um, wow.
Yeah.
And then when did you start getting into chainmail? Because that's a lot of your body of work now, right?
So chainmail has been the most longevity of any of my processes. Glass chainmail, yeah. Chainmail started maybe 2016, I think. Yeah. I think I had my cousin message me that he wanted a gift for his girlfriend.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't have like a jewelry design in my head at that point. So I looked a few ideas up, and I saw something in metal that was like a chainmail thing, and it looked relatively easy to execute. It ended up not being easy to execute at all because it was one of these weaves that has like a a marble trapped inside of the chainmail every half inch. And the aggravating thing about that pattern is the ball just keeps falling out if you don't get the aspect ratio of the chain links right.
Hmm.
I did get it eventually, but it fought me quite a bit. After more orders of stuff similar to that, I was like, okay, the price point or sculptural jewelry, not just like what I have on like a pendant, is
Hmm.
decent, and the production isn't that crazy. So, maybe we lean into that a little bit. So I had seen somebody make a glass chainmail blanket in college, and I looked up the basic chainmail weave, which is the European 4-in-1. Not all chainmail people recommend starting with the 4-in-1. There are easier ones to start with, but it went reasonably well. And That piece is found a home, and it looked rather nice, so it was success. It was a success. And I do also want to acknowledge there's a quite talented female glass chainmail maker out there whose work I saw way in the beginning. Kim Thomas, like they said in art school, you should look up the context of your idea and like how widespread it is before you
Mm,
start doing it. So you know,
yeah.
are you doing something? How unique is the thing you're doing? And I saw Kim Thomas's work and I was like, oh, she does Byzantine earrings. And that's what she was doing back then. It was really basically just Byzantine earrings. But now she does all these crazy puzzly things.
I need to look her up. It's been, yeah, that's so cool. That's so funny, Small World.
Yeah, the
She's a
execution on
nice lady.
her links are real good too.
You did say that you wanted to fit something in about information that you want to share to other people.
Oh, yeah. To segue into like, where would somebody else start as a budding glass chainmail artist or like a metal person who wants to get into glass chainmail? Yeah.
Yeah.
As we know, like there's a lot of people out there who make what I call, I'm not sure what the real name is for it, the bicycle link, just the one ovular link. I know how to do that too, but this information is relevant to both people. The first thing that is really important to set up before you get started, like making a ton of links, is in your head, you want to know what pattern are you going for and what does the aspect ratio need to be for that pattern. If we define aspect ratio, it's the relationship of the thickness of the link to the diameter of the link. It could be anywhere from the diameter being 3 times as big as the thickness to 5 times as big as the thickness is like the optimum range for the strength of the chain. So
Yeah.
if you want like a really nice chain that you want to sell for an expensive price, you should not be selling like a weird chunky chain that's really off from those numbers because it could destroy itself. And then you're on the
Wow.
hook for that.
That's great. Yep. Good to know.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I would definitely recommend look you can Google like aspect ratio chainmail and it'll give you a chart of like what a 3 to 5 looks like. It'll tell you what weaves typically are more towards the 5 and up end, what weaves are typically more like the 3 end. I'll also say that I do think that if you can stay at at that aspect ratio, that a chain that uses smaller links is generally going to perform better than a chain that uses big chunky links. The chain that uses the smaller links is going to end up lighter, which is easier for the user. And it's just, it moves, it feels like fabric when it moves. It doesn't feel awkward or brittle or like you have to be delicate around it. You should still be careful with it and like don't go giving people massive crushing hugs, but a smaller chain is definitely a more reasonable, it's more archival, I would say.
That
I would
makes
say it's a
sense.
better investment. Yeah.
I think a little bit of this probably comes back to what you were talking about with your base on being able to draw things out or even like computer image things. So having a plan and really doing that research into that, that is full circle too, huh?
Yeah, definitely. There's this website that I wanted to share too. A big part learning each of the patterns is learning to read a CGI instruction blueprint. Yeah, this is the website. There might be better resources on YouTube if YouTube and video is the format you learn better on, but this is more reliable in terms of having everything on it. When I was new, I really liked learning this one, the box foreign. I found it like at the right amount of challenging, and it also moved along at a fast enough pace that I didn't get frustrated. Box chain CGI. So this is the format that you want to get comfortable reading. In this technique, and they're going through it in a little bit of a different way, that they're having you fold it over into the box. And a lot of times
Okay.
they'll color code it by saying like the next ring you add is going to be this color. There you go. They've done that there.
Hmm. No, this is an awesome resource.
It's excellent. One of the hurdles to this process is that it can be overwhelming to think about executing the totality of something that you don't start knowing how it even goes together. Um,
Totally.
and there are
Yeah.
things that I've made that I don't understand how they went together after I finished them. I was just
Mm.
following the instructions the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them I understand, but others I will never understand.
Wow. Yeah. No, that's so cool. Do you mostly do it with glass or do you ever use metal?
Oh, it's so funny. I have one that incorporates metal because I just brought something.
Oh, yeah.
This one needed metal links to like hold the Mobius open. So that's a unusual example, but usually not. But I have, there was one chainmail weave called Moorish Rose that I wanted to do in glass ever since I first saw it on like a very talented chainmailer's site. And I was like, I don't even know if this is possible. It has a very big aspect ratio, so it's very breakable. It's very technical. It's like spirals of six spiraled into each other in rows, like almost like knitting and crocheting, so that there's many, many, many interactions in between them. And that one, yeah, I didn't know whether it was going to be possible, so I had to make it in metal first. That took, even getting one rep out of metal took 40 hours. But I believe I might be the only person who's ever done it in glass because it was so it and I don't think I'm the only person who ever can. I think I'm just the only person who ever sat down to do it.
Yeah, like force yourself to do it. Clearly, there's a whole website on metal chain mailers. Is there a whole glass community that you found, or is it kind of few and far between still?
Yeah, I don't think there's a huge community of people doing chains. It's small. I've definitely heard people talk smack about each other. I'm not going to repeat any of it because I don't think that helps. But I think that was mostly due to, for a while, there weren't a lot of people competing for the same customers. And now they have more choices, which I think is good. I just think that the what I see is a lot of it's not informed by the metal community, which has so much more development in the patterns, and then it's kind of like a basic grid. I see a lot of like basic grids. I don't think that's bad. I think that's like learning the European foreign one. It's like a necessary step in the progression of your chainmail process. I think that what's necessary if you really want to like nail your flag in the surface of the moon is to push yourself to try something that's really hard, that maybe is confusing and maybe you fail at the first couple times.
Has there been points in your life where you thought that maybe you might move away from glass as a medium, or have you pretty much stuck with it since you first started back when you were a kid?
I was diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome at 28. That came with like me having a lot of really weird joint problems that were like so spaced so close together that the doctors were like, okay, this is not a normal amount of joint problems. Once I learned how to care for them, it got a lot easier. My first knuckle that I used to hold the tweezers when I turn the stringer into a circle would dislocate, well, not dislocate, it would just kind of like migrate out of where it's supposed to be and become painful. And that would happen regularly, like every half hour. I took several years off because of the diagnosis. Did not knowing what like my life as glassblower would look like afterwards. And I came back to it and started doing some stuff that wasn't chain and mixing that in with the chain so that I wasn't spending too much time grinding on my knuckles.
And how do you kind of find a balance outside of glass? You use your creativity in other ways that aren't hard on your joints, or are you focusing more on like your wellness journey or just a little bit of everything?
So the wellness journey is definitely like a big focus in life. I definitely try to see it as one big picture with the glass and the rock climbing and all of the different things. Most recently, I got a nutrition certification from a holistic Ayurveda school in India, and that was really cool. Like it was really cool to just be in a class that everybody else was Indian, pretty much. I would say that yeah, the wellness journey has definitely been the main focus lately. But yeah, the glass the and the art will be there. They'll always be there. I just trust that they'll be there. Taking that break when I was younger, like I didn't feel like one of the reasons why I didn't freak out because I was like, it's not like I'm not going to do anything creative at all in that gap. I'll go to craft night. Buddies text me about craft night. For my birthday this year, we went to one of those paint bars and did that. Next, I'm kind of waiting. I'd like to make something like that piece, the cell phone piece. It's called Shatter. I'd like to make a piece like that again. I'm kind of hoping for the gods of the contemporary art ideas to bless me with inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta wait for that cloud to pass. Yeah.
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 And then the right things to line up at the right time. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Do you have anything else that you wanted to cover, or do you have words of wisdom to leave people with?
I might not be the wisest person with how to unstick someone that is stuck creatively. I'll admit that. Jake's really good at that. My boyfriend is very good at that. He actually did that for me. So that's cool. But
How did he do that for you?
he was so he was a fan of my work. We hung out a long time ago. I moved to different places, traveled, and all of this different stuff, and then came around, messaged him. We started hanging out. Romantic was involved. He was like, "You got to get back to glass. You got to get back to glass." Like you just hyped me up, and he was like, "What? That would be ridiculous for you to not do glass. You're stupid good at it. Why would you not do it? Maybe." Just take whatever his words were there and use it as self-talk for yourself. Be like, I'm amazing at this. Why would I not do this? Just kind of yas queen it out until you
Yes.
sit down and turn the torch on, right?
Yeah. Yep. Or listen to what your support system's saying because they're not lying to you.
And I'd say that like if it was me with one last tidbit, it would be that if you want to take a piece of wisdom from somebody with intersectional abilities as in fitness, it would be examine your workspace. Maybe have a friend take a photo of you working. See if your posture is upright and neutral. See if your elbows are at the right height in relationship to the torch. Check, do you have any chronic pain anywhere? Because while your work can get made over and over and over again, you only get one body. I would just encourage you to take care of it because that is the tool that is going to pay all of your bills. Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, I love that.
thank you.
Cool.
Thanks so much for listening to Shaping Stories, a Glass Artist podcast. You can find us on YouTube. Please hit subscribe. Also on Facebook and Instagram. You can listen to us on Spotify and all the podcast platforms. Once more, my name is Dominique Casey. You can find me on all the socials at my name, Dominique Casey, Caissie. You can Also find Amanda to support what she does on Instagram, FLUIDST8. Thank you so much for her for sharing her time and being vulnerable with us so that we can learn from her. And I really appreciate you spending your time with us today.